Hello, beautiful people. It's Dr. Abe again, and we have season 4 of The Good Doctor up and running, and I'm with
Dr. Emma.
Alright, so without further much, let's see our clips. Okay. Seeing this in 2020?
Yeah.
It's
Can only mean one thing.
can only. Oh yeah, there she
that's
goes.
true.
There she
She's
goes.
coughing.
Temperature, literally the definition of 2020 so far. I think it's been a long while since we had a pandemic. So
yeah,
have you had any experiences working in the COVID ward?
Yeah, so during the first peak, I was on the COVID ward. Oh wow, look.
Yeah.
Oh, they've depicted this quite well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the whole progression of it, how it starts a little, then just.
And you can see how unwell she is. Yeah, so during the pandemic, I was on the COVID ward throughout most of it for a good, I think, 3 months. So most of the initial peak. So yeah, it was a very strange time to be working.
Yeah. And some people, I don't know, still think it's a myth. Some people still do not believe it exists. Some people are also like anti-max and everything. I'm like, okay, because what can we say that's not been said actually pertaining to COVID?
I don't know. All I can say is I've seen it. I've seen what it does to people. I've seen people deteriorate.
Exactly.
So it's real. If you want to believe anybody, believe me, it's definitely real.
I think currently any child in the UK, I can say for sure, can tell me even the symptoms of COVID because they've been kept away from school for a while. They've been kept away from their friends. They've been asking their parents what's happening. They've seen that you need to stay apart. That what do you call it? 6 feet or what do you call it? 2 meters. 2 meters rule and everything. They've seen that they can't go and play outside. Like everybody kind of gets it now.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it still doesn't seem to resonate throughout the world. Even though this is a pandemic of almost a century. The last time we had anything similar, like, was the Spanish flu, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did your hospital handle it?
So for us, we had a lot of redeployment, which basically means that those who weren't currently working on medicine were moved to medicine. So at the time, I was already working in medicine. I was a senior SHO, senior house officer on medicine. So I sort of stayed on the medical ward, and I was joined by all different sorts of doctors. So we had surgeons join us, geneticists join us, people that hadn't been on the wards for a long time. They came to join us, and we formed what's called mega teams. So the hospital was split into 5 mega teams that had, like a good amount of doctors in it, so that there was always some people on the ward, and they made sure that we had enough rest time. So our rota changed to roughly 3 days on, 3 days off, or sometimes 4 days on, 3 days off, to make sure that we were getting enough rest. The main thing that changed in the way we work is just that we were all treating an illness that we didn't know how to treat. So what I mean by that is initially when patients would come in, it's either if they're unwell enough and they need to go to intensive care, they would go to intensive care. But those who weren't candidates for intensive care and stayed on the wards, it was really difficult for us because it's like we give oxygen, but then sometimes you then give the maximum amount of oxygen and there's nothing left to do, and you're just sort of watching them deteriorate. And it was very difficult, very frustrating for us as clinicians to just, care for people for a disease you don't know how to treat.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm about to ask you this question. It feels stupid, but just in case nobody has heard of COVID, can you tell us the signs and symptoms and how to prevent it? Or somebody might be watching this video 5 years from now, who knows?
True.
Yeah. So just run us through that quickly and let's move on.
Yeah, so COVID is a respiratory illness. The 3 most important symptoms you look for are fever, a new cough, and what was added later is a change in the sense of smell or taste. Other symptoms you can get are muscle aches, like a very overwhelming fatigue, and just feeling generally unwell. Some people have had COVID and have been completely asymptomatic, and I fall into that category, but others have been very unwell with it. So the best way to prevent transmission is to always wear a face mask and give people space, so 2 meters social distancing, because you could have COVID and be passing it on to people without knowing, because you could be asymptomatic.
Excellent. I think that will prime us for our next clip. Guy obviously showing signs of COVID. Oh, okay. These are the makeshift test boot camps, I should say. Yeah.
Testing tents or whatever.
I did visit you at the hospital the other time, and I saw something similar.
Yeah.
What do they do then? How do they do it?
So here in the UK, they're done in your car. So basically, you sort of line up in your car. Well, I won't say in the UK, sorry, in my hospital. I don't know if it's completely universal.
Every year, because I've not seen it in every hospital, but in your hospital, I did see that.
Yeah, you stay in your car, and then someone dressed like this person here will meet you in the car.
I think everybody now knows what a PPE is. So
yeah.
you can say someone dressed in PPE.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And they basically take what's called a COVID swab. And it's just a tiny swab, and you take it, you rub the swab at the back of the mouth, and that gets sent off to the lab to see if they can detect the COVID-19 virus. Yeah,
other places I've also worked to, they literally send you the test kits, you do your own swabbing through your nose or through your mouth, depending on the kind of kits available. Then you just send it in a week or two, you get your result. I think with travel restrictions and stuff like that, it's kind of like seen more now in airports. I think they started that 2 weeks ago in Heathrow, but in other countries it's been there for quite a while, where they take your samples, make sure that you're negative before you go on the flight, because they do not want the disease to spread, even though currently every country has recorded a case. So it just gets weirder and weirder. But yeah, that's 2020 for you. Let's see. What do you think that is?
Okay, so she's gonna be intubated.
Okay, so for those who might not know what intubation is, can you quickly run us through?
So intubation is you basically insert a tube into the person's windpipe. That's the tube there. It's called an endotracheal tube.
This tube right here, right?
Yep. It's
okay.
called an endotracheal tube. And the other instrument she's using, the metal one, there we go. That's called a laryngoscope.
Okay.
That basically has, I don't know how to describe it, like a lever that helps you to open up the windpipe, and it also has a light on it so that the person can see where they're going.
And also help displace the tongue forward so that...
Exactly, to basically create the passageway for the endotracheal tube to pass. So once you put in the tube, you can then connect that to the ventilation machines and effectively breathe for the person.
Yeah, I think this became it's been there in practice for years. I think, but due to the COVID and it being a respiratory disease, there was a huge bump in its production, where I think even some governments were asking car companies, so many companies, to provide respirators. And for you to be on a respirator, you need to be intubated, and that's basically the process. It's one of the most uncomfortable things in the world, but fortunately enough, those who have to use it or those who have to undergo it are in the worst case scenario. Like they're really, really deteriorating, and they can't breathe for themselves. Like their lungs are either collapsing, their diaphragm is not working, for whatever reason. They can't seem to have what we call spontaneous ventilation, which we actually do without thinking, till you really know you cannot breathe.
You take it for granted.
Yeah, so that is can you say it again for us?
Intubation.
The process of intubation, so that you can be put on a respirator. So that's it for episode 1. Yay. Okay, so I'll leave her details, my details up on screen, so you can just follow us if you need to. We have other episodes coming. Sorry, we went for a short break, but we're back now. See you in the next episode.